All right, so today I'm gonna be fixing the bed on this rusty Ford Ranger here. See, I already took the bed off, but essentially this has got a couple holes in it. You can see here the bed is pretty much just rotted away, as well as the cross member here, which I was in the middle of prying the rest of it off, but this is just Line-X behind there. But yeah, you can see the holes that have rusted through this entire bed here. And we're gonna weld in this patch panel that I bought. Get these, I got that on Amazon actually. So we're gonna cut that, weld it in, and then I also have some other steel here, just some cut sheet metal, and then some square tubing as well that we're gonna try and use to replace these cross members to hopefully repair this bed. The rest of it is in pretty good shape. There's no real rust on the side panels, except for just a little bit on the wheel well there. And then the frame itself and the rest of the truck looks really nice. So I already went through and kind of needle scaled everything and pressure washed it and wire wheeled it and pretty much just got it all prepped for primer and paint, which I'll show you guys what I use for that. I'm going to use a rust reformer. And yeah. So if we come over here, the first thing I'm doing here is just removing, I'm going to do this cross member first because it doesn't have bolts going through it, and I think this one will be the easiest. But essentially I'm just going through and literally just prying whatever I can off with this pry bar, which is pretty easy to do when it's this far gone. So yeah, we'll clean that up. And oh yeah, I won't actually do the cross member first. I'm actually going to cut out this entire section here that's all rotted out, and I'll put a patch panel in, and then we'll do the cross members. So I'll show you guys how I do that. All right, so I finally got all those cross members off here. So they're kind of spot welded on here. So you can see some of these I just pried off with a pry bar and it kind of ripped a hole out. So we're gonna have to take care of all these as well as the ones that left some stuff on here. So in order to do that, I'll use a flap disc and kind of just grind everything flat, and then I'll weld these little tiny holes shut, and hopefully that shows itself on the Line-X back here, because I think we're gonna have to grind that off because I don't want rust pockets to form underneath that, and so on and so forth. So once we get that done, I'll measure this all out and try and cut out as much of the rust as all the rust holes as needed. So probably this whole section here. And then cut the patch panel and get that ready to be welded in. All right, so I got all that stuff cut out, and this is how it looks. There shouldn't be any other rust holes in the bed. So now, the next step is just gonna cut that. Is gonna be just to cut that out of the patch panel. And we should be able to weld this thing right up. All right, so first on coating the undercarriage of this truck here, we're gonna be using rust reformer. Now this stuff is good because it'll neutralize the rust and kind of just stop it from spreading at all. And then you can top coat right over it. So essentially just a rusty metal primer, but it'll actually deactivate the rust and sort of kill it in a way. So we're gonna go ahead and spray everything we can with this stuff. All right, so I got this frame completely coated in rust reformer here. This is about a little over a day later. Let that stuff fully cure. And we're gonna go ahead and hit it with some high performance enamel. Allegedly, the professional stuff is a little bit more durable, which is why I'm gonna be using this stuff. And then once that's all applied, it should dry to the touch in about 15 minutes, it says, but we're still working on the bed here, so I'll probably let it sit for about a day or so and then let it off gas and fully cure over a few more days. And then we're gonna completely coat this whole thing in Surface Shield to further protect it from rust. All right, so this is the next day here, and you can see I got the entire back half of the frame coated in paint. It's been curing for, like I said, about a day and seems to be decently durable. But again, we're gonna go over this entire thing with Surface Shield. Now, any of you guys who are in the rust belt, you know that paint is definitely not enough protection. This will probably be rusty again in about one winter with all the salt they put down over here. But the stuff like fluid film and Surface Shield work really well, especially if you put it on before it starts rusting. So That's definitely the way to go. And we're gonna let this cure still for another couple days just to make sure that it's completely done off gassing, because I don't think it'll be able to do that through the lanolin based coating. And you know, after a few days go by, I'll pull the bed off once more and coat everything as best I can with Surface Shield. So the bed over here, you can see we got this patch panel put in, almost completely welded in. I ran out of welding gas yesterday, so I had to flux weld these cross members in, which I also fabricated. And then I just got more welding gas today, so I'm gonna finish welding in the patch panels, because welding the thin material with flux is not fun. So I custom fabricated all these cross members. The best way to go about this is to just have a shop or a metal supplier bend you the cross members out of some 16 gauge sheet metal. Unfortunately, the shop that is closest to me, they didn't have a brake at the time, so I had to custom make these. But it's pretty simple to do if you just send them all the dimensions, and it's really not all that expensive. But yeah, this is what I did. So I just got some square tubing and then some 16 gauge sheet metal cut, and I put, this is 1.5 by 1.5 square tubing, and I just drilled some holes in the center for drainage, because we don't want any dirt, water, or anything like that getting caught up in there. And then this guy was 1.5 by 2-inch square tubing, and I actually had to cut this down a little bit just to get it to fit right. And then this guy, same deal as here. This was 1.5 by 1.5 square tubing, and I actually put some C-channel on top here because this section had to be just a little bit higher. I don't think we would have ran into clearance issues if I didn't put these as kind of a riser and they were just a taller piece, but that's the way I went about it. And then I also put in some tubing in the center here just to reinforce the square tubing here with the bed mounting bolts. So then you can see over here, I also had these sections were all completely rusted out, and I kind of just fabricated both of these sides and bent the sheet metal in my vise, and it actually turned out pretty well. I was able to salvage the actual, I guess, tubing member here off of the bed, which literally just fell off as we were taking it off. But I cleaned that up and welded it to this piece of sheet metal that I bent, and pretty much just shaped it to the original cross member and reinforced that. So that should be plenty strong now. And I believe the old sheet metal was also 16 gauge, so that's the same diameter. I was gonna weld in, I had some 1/8 inch flat stock, but I didn't want to weld that in because I didn't want to deal with any other parts, since if you're welding thicker steel to thinner steel, you don't want the thinner steel to flex, and the thicker steel can't, because that's where you get stress and you can form a crack somewhere else. So I made sure to use the same gauge, and this rear cross member should be strong enough now. Time will tell, but it's all turned out pretty well. The welds aren't the prettiest, unfortunately, because again, I had to flux weld those, but got the MIG welder back up and running, so we'll get finished on these cross members and paint it all up. So I got all the welding finished up here. All the patch panels are in, welded nice and strong, and we're all prepped and ready for paint on the back side here. And then on the front, again, I'll weld it up, and I'll wash everything one more time with a pressure washer and make sure it's all prepped for paint as well. Probably paint, and I might try and do another undercoating out of a spray can. I don't know if I'm gonna take it all the way to Line-X, but yeah, everything turned out really well. Should be all nice and strong now. Gonna clean all this off with a little bit of super clean before we actually go ahead and top coat it. All right, so this is essentially the finished product here. I let the paint and everything dry for a few days now, so it should be all done off gassing. And here's the bed as well, all nice and painted. So you can see we got just a nice dusting of snow on the ground here, and so the roads are perfectly covered with salt. So before I drive this truck on the road, I'm gonna spray some Surface Shield, PP Blaster Surface Shield with the paint sprayer here, just to give it as much protection as I can from the salt. All right, so this job here is pretty much done. Got done coating everything in Surface Shield. Got everything thoroughly coated because I do not want this thing to rust out again. Anyone in the rust belt, you guys know, you know, paint alone is definitely not enough to prevent this thing from rusting out again, especially the stuff that comes out of a can, because it's just nowhere near as durable as something that, you know, a body shop would put on or what comes from the factory. So this is the real way to protect it from rust. People ask me what's better, surface shield, fluid film, or wool wax or something like that. And in my opinion, they're all pretty much the same. I've never used this stuff, the surface shield. This is my first time, but I got it on sale, so I figured I might as well try it. One thing I'm curious to see is just how far it actually creeps, because the fluid film, after I sprayed it, I've sprayed this truck a couple times, but it wound up creeping all the way out. I didn't spray the bed at all. I just sprayed underneath, and it was creeping out of all these cracks and seams in the truck bed here. So that stuff definitely works well. But yeah, all in all, it turned out pretty well. All the body lines line up perfectly. I was happy about that. See on this side as well. So yeah, it's definitely not an easy job either. It took a few days to get all this stuff welded in there and completed, but it's all done now. And the important thing is that the bed is structurally sound. Pretty much rocked the whole truck with this back rack here, and there's no movement. So yeah, pretty happy with the way this turned out, and it's gonna be pretty much it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.